All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Scandariato with Red Knight Properties, and we have a special guest here with us, Mr. Biz. Is his business street name, but his name is Ken Wentworth, and he's going to be talking to us today about how business owners can be more profitable, they can sleep better at night, and specifically, what's a fractional CFO and how can that apply towards not only just the real estate business, but any business that needs to generate revenue. So, Ken, so thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Anthony, I appreciate you having me. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people have that question, and frankly, about 5-6 years ago, I didn't know what the heck a fractional CFO was either. I'd never heard of it. So it's a fair question, but think of it this way. Think of a business owner or an investor that is maybe really good at what they do. So they're really good at the service or the widgets they produce, the products they produce, or the services they provide, but maybe they don't have the business experience, and specifically in this case, some of the financial business experience. So I always use the silly example of Paul the plumber, who is a master plumber, and he's been a plumber for 20 plus years, and he's really good at that, but he doesn't have the experience of running a business. And so he might struggle or not be as profitable as he should be or could be, because he just doesn't understand that part of the business. And he's really good at plumbing, but he just doesn't know, he's never run a business before. And this is a lot of times where I think, people like that, I can come in and help them really quickly establish a bunch of different, KPIs, key performance indicators, et cetera. And with investors, it would work similarly. So, establishing what is important, what metrics they should be looking at, especially when they're looking at investing in a new deal and a new syndication, et cetera. What things should they be looking at? What ratios should they be monitoring? Where should they look to be in things they're investing in, things like that? So.
Awesome. So when you're talking about being a fractional CFO and like you said, it's not really whoever's running the business, they may be really good at one thing but not good at another. Can you kind of talk about what sort of metrics that you kind of guide your clients to look at? It doesn't have to be real estate related, but let's just use real estate as an example.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I call them my 3 pillars of financial success, and that's where I start with every single client. And those are cash flow, number one, right? Cash flow is king. And you don't have cash, you don't have business, right? Regardless of the type of business you're doing. So very, very important. And there's almost always, even if cash flow is not a challenge for your business, there's almost always strategies we can implement to make it even better. So we start with cash flow, and then we go to, I like to call it the B word, Anthony, budgeting. A budget is so critically important to the success of any type of business. And it's not, I think a lot of people, most businesses don't even have a budget or have never created one. I think they're missing a huge opportunity there. It's so important to me that when I even talk with a prospective client, if having a budget for them is they don't want to do that, then that's a deal breaker for me, because I know how important it is, because you can monitor things as you're going throughout the year and be able to quickly pivot off of what's not working or what is working and be able to, accentuate that even more. And then the third one is pricing. And I know it sounds obvious, and by that, I don't mean, just increase your prices. Really understanding, because what a lot of businesses, what I find, almost every single business I've ever worked with, unfortunately, has what I call the silent business killer. And that is unprofitable products or services. And I call it silent because most people say, well, why would I have something purposely unprofitable? Well, you don't purposely do it, but you just don't realize it. And then the real killer of that is that most times those unprofitable products or services are the highest volumes that you're selling. And so imagine a business owner that is selling like crazy. Sales are up, revenue's up, but they're having problems with the cash flow or they're losing money, right? It sounds very counter, right? Well, my sales are up, but I'm losing money. It doesn't make any sense. That's what it is, right? You're selling this product that's unprofitable, And you just don't know it. You don't realize it because it's not there. And or even if you don't have that, maybe some of your products are not priced at the profitability level that they should be. So for your industry, if you should be at a 20% net margin and you've got things priced at a 5% net margin, again, you don't even realize it. Huge opportunity there to increase your profitability by fixing that pricing problem right there. So I start with those three. Every single business, that's where we start. Once we get those nailed down and have that foundation, then we can go beyond those. But we really got to get those three legs of the stool have to be, functioning really well and optimally, and then we move on to other things.
Got it. Okay. So when you establish that foundation, those three pillars, what are some of the challenges, the most common challenges that you see, when you're advising your clients? Is it mostly cash flow related after it comes down to budgeting, whether they're growing and they have to, hire staff, and it kind of gets a little bit more definitely more complicated. What are some of the growing pains, at least, that, you've seen your clients experience, and kind of how they've overcame that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say probably two things. Number one is, and it's changed a little bit, obviously, over the last 6-8 months with the pandemic and everything, but it's hiring good people. Finding good people to hire is a challenge, again, across all industries, across all geographies. That's been a challenge for sure. But, one of the things that I see as people are growing and expanding, regardless of business, one of the things, the mistakes I see and challenges I see with folks is they have their base, if it's a brick and mortar store or something like that, or even it's just they have their base of investments and they're replicating that, and it's not really optimal. So what I mean by that simple example is, let's say you have one location and you say, man, I want to expand and I want to get to 5-6 locations. You replicate that original location, and as we all know, just like with the old copy machines, the copy is never as good as the original, right? So if the original that you're copying is a 6 on a scale 1 to 10, the copy ends up being a 4 or a 5. And then the copy of the copy is, it degrades further as you go along. So what I really stress with folks is, especially as they're growing, you got to make sure that base and what you're replicating and duplicating is at a 9 or a 10 before you even think about expanding and again, duplicating that, because again, the copy is typically not as good as the original. So you want to make sure that one, the original is really, really top notch, in good working order. And the same thing with investments. I mean, you got to make sure that, as what you're investing in, you don't want to replicate something that, maybe you have a faulty process. I was mentioning earlier is maybe some of the metrics that you're looking at as far as an investment go, they're not exactly the things you should be looking at, right? And so now you're going to double down on that. So it's really important to make sure that those base things that you're looking for, not only as an investor, but even in your business and expanding, that you got to make sure that those bases are really, really solid before you start to duplicate those.
Got it. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You also, from what I understand, run your own podcast as well?
Yeah, I've got a radio show, Mr. Biz Radio. We've been doing it for almost about 4 years now. About another week or so, be 4 years we've been doing it. And it's grown like crazy. We're on a bunch of different we're on 5 different internet radio networks right now. And the show airs for 40 hours a week now. It's crazy.
That is crazy. And you're also an author too.
Yeah. And it's really odd because people who know me, I absolutely cannot stand writing. I hate writing. I'll do video, audio, but it's painful for me. But I've written 2 books, been fortunate enough. They both made it to bestseller status. One's How to Be a Cash Flow Pro, of course, cash flow. And then the other one's called Pathway to Profits. And it's covering a bunch of different topics, 10 different topics that are critical to business success, talking about growing your revenue, talking about how to hire people more effectively. In my corporate career, where I worked at a Fortune 15 company and got to the top 3% of a Fortune 15 company. And over that time hired, hundreds, if not, 1,000 or so people. So even that kind of thing is, I'm not just a CFO. So, I've got some tricks to the trade as far as how to what to look for when you're hiring folks, as far as, making sure you make good hires and things like that, because obviously that's very important, very time consuming process, especially if you hire the wrong person. You start to train them, you invest, and you figure out, 60 days in, they're not the right fit. And so now you got to start all the way over, and, it's very painful. So a bunch of different things like that, but how to help, owners, entrepreneurs, whether they're starting a business, setting up a business, how to really get those base fundamentals down really solid. So as you grow, you're growing upon a really solid foundation.
Sure, sure. Um, and so in terms of, when you're looking at the real estate business, and you mentioned kind of it in stages, right? So some people, they want to get in there and they want to buy as many units or as many assets as quickly as they can. But like you said, you kind of teach people, at least from my understanding, to step back a minute and understand what your ultimate goals are, using those three pillars, and adjusting your business plan from there. Because do you see it being common that what's the term when entrepreneurs are all over the place and they want to
Right.
do this, that, and the other thing? Um, do you see that being pretty common? Because I come across it very often, especially in the real estate industry, kind of outside what I do.
Yeah.
So,
No,
how do you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's, if you truly have an entrepreneurial mind, I think that's one of the biggest challenges of having an entrepreneurial mind, is that you get easily distracted because you've got all these different ideas. You want to grow, you want to expand, you want, oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this. And I actually fell victim to this myself in 2019. I went to a conference, Grant Cardone's growth conference, 10X Growth Con, and my mind was blown away. And I got all these ideas, and I came back, and I literally, for the next 6 months, I'm working my tail off and getting nothing accomplished, nothing completed, I should say. I'm accomplishing things, and I really sat back and was very frustrated by it, to say, gosh, I'm working my butt off. How come I'm not checking any boxes? How come I'm not completing anything? And I literally sat down, Anthony, and I was working on 13 different things at that time,
Wow.
which, I'm making progress on all 13, but I'm not completing any of the 13. So, yeah. So I have to check myself on that sometimes as well, but it's easy to do, especially with that type of mind. But I'll tell you, one of the things I preach, and a little bit sort of taking a tangent off of that, is not only for business owners, but especially for investors, is to make sure that you are ready and you have a strong balance sheet. So you are ready for the economic downturn, which we're in the middle of right now, as you well know. And so, I began over a year ago, making sure that my clients were positioned. And it's funny, after 10 years of growth and prosperity, and this, economic boom we've had for 10 years or so in the United States, my clients are like, oh my gosh, you're being paranoid. Everything's great, and I'm like, I want to be prepared. And I literally prepared. I said, I want to make sure that the earliest I think an economic downturn is coming is July 1st of 2020. So I want to make sure that we're ready for that. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Well, then of course, fast forward to March, April of 2020, when all the shutdowns begin, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're Nostradamus. Like, how'd you predict this? I'm like, well, hold on. I didn't actually predict it. Didn't know there's gonna be a pandemic, but, and with investors, super, super important. If you have a strong balance sheet and you have cash right now, there's going to be a massive opportunity for you, right? You're going to be able to buy properties at a discounted rate. A lot of people, especially if you got that idea of commercial properties, for example, that they're saying, oh my gosh, I've got these businesses, and the businesses we're in or leasing from me are going out of business. So I'm going to unload this thing, right? So they're going to unload at a cheaper price, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that if you have the capital to do that. If you weren't positioned well, forget about keeping your business going and being successful. You're not going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So, even with my clients, two of my clients are on pace to have, and they're going to have the best year they've ever had, despite the pandemic, because what happened is with each of them, one of them had two competitors that went out of business, didn't make it through. And the other one had their next biggest competitor went out of business. And so we were able to step in and seize that market share, take care of their customers, and even better, hire their folks, right? They're going out of business and people are losing their jobs. Well, we have all this extra volume. We had to hire people. Now we can hire people that have the experience, et cetera, save jobs, save/create those jobs. But, and then, like one of them is a service-based business. Service-based business, trucks on the road, right? Every truck on the road is $250,000 of revenue in this particular business. Well, we need more trucks because we have more volume. Well, they're going out of business, so now we can purchase their assets, right? They're trying to unload those trucks. We can buy those trucks at a discounted rate. Same thing with investing. Like I said, you've got these properties, and some of these property managers are saying, "Okay, I'm tapping out. I want to get out of the business," but they're doing so at the wrong time, frankly, because they're selling low, right? And so if you have that capital, you could take advantage of that and purchase things at a discounted rate. I saw this in the corporate world when I worked at JP Morgan Chase, and during the last downturn in 2008, 2009, JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns at a massive discount, bought Washington Mutual at a massive discount. So I learned it from the corporate world, frankly, and apply it to current. But huge opportunity. Obviously, you can't figure that out in the middle of a downturn, right? You got to be prepared for that ahead of time. But man, if you have that capital now's the time to be expanding, whether it's investing or just business.
That makes a lot of sense. So how can people find your podcast? And you said you're syndicated on multiple radio stations now. That's awesome. Congratulations. How do they find it and learn more about you and what you do if they want to reach out to you in further detail?
Yeah. You go MrBizSolutions.com. We released the show, Mr. Biz Radio, out there. You'll find it easily on the website, and then any social media platform, just search for Mr. Biz, you'll find me. And we have we release a ton of content. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got, I don't know, over 100 videos on that, short videos that are topic specific to talk about tips on, hey, I'll pop on and say, you know what, I got a revenue growth strategy that you guys can implement, et cetera, things like that, talking about cash flow, all those types of things. But yeah, if you search for Mr. Biz, you'll probably find me.
Awesome. That's great. Well, Ken Wentworth, thanks for joining us, Mr. Biz, on the Discovery Multifamily podcast. Hope to have you again on in the short, near-term future.
All right. Thanks, Anthony, for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care, Ken.